Welcome back to Kings of the North live in Atlanta. We're in a room with nobody, Landis, so it's shouting time. Doug Lesmerises, Bill Landis. We just went to media days. We're going to go double check that you can hear us.
You can actually hear us.
Yeah. Can you imagine what this would look like if I'm shouting and gesticulating and the sound's not coming through? We got the board, we got the camera, we brought everything from the north, but this is not how we
I can play the sound of my computer if you want real quick.
Is that professional podcasting?
We're great.
Hey.
We're great. We're golden.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for being here on a Saturday. We were there for an hour with Notre Dame. We were there for an hour with Ohio State. Producer Mike is alongside, helping us look good and sound good. And we're glad that you guys are here. We met some folks out there, Landis. Wasn't that nice to see the folks out there saying hello?
It was very nice. Someone asked to have their picture taken with me, which, it was very nice, but I felt weird. Is that okay? Am I allowed to feel weird about that?
Somebody asked me, and I felt great.
Yeah, that's if you want to know the distinct difference between the two of us, it's that.
I was like, this is a great decision by you to get a photo with me. So it was an interesting scene out there. We're going to talk about vibes, talk about news from Media Day. We have some interviews that we did asking players about Marcus Freeman, about Ryan Day, about the North. Mike put those packages together for us. But was it a warm embrace of Northern superiority? Because Mike was pointing it out, some other people were pointing it out, you were pointing it out, like, there's somebody in a Georgia shirt, I see a Texas shirt over there, and there was an instinct to walk over to them and be like, are you in the wrong place, and do you feel sad?
Yeah, was there a Georgia guy and a Texas guy like traveling in sad tandem together? I think so. around listen, FOMO hits us all, right? I think, and we actually have I forgot to tell Mike this for the show. I have a tweet I want Mike to put in the show of mine of a billboard downtown that some Georgia faithful like just can't leave it alone. They have to remind us of their presence here in Atlanta. There's a big skyscraper down here that says "Go Dogs" on it.
Go Dogs. Go where?
Yeah, go away.
Go away. Yeah. Go home.
This is the North's town this weekend.
Yeah. So that is very cool. They have like a stuff set up for fans. I walked through a little playoff-uary stand for Dr. Pepper. Like you can go through some stuff there. We were talking about that. I've been talking about that for a long time of like, we have March Madness. What should we call this? I don't know if Dr. Pepper found the right thing with playoff-uary. I don't know what's better. I feel like we still have to work on that.
Can you play with January jubilation?
Yeah. We haven't
I don't know, because I don't
alliteration off season to figure that out.
We don't have enough data yet, I think, to know whether or not madness applies to college football's postseason. Right? Oh,
right. So, Southern anger applies.
Oh, we could do that.
It could just be the season of Northern aggression.
We're landing on it.
Since you've renamed the Crema meter the meter of Northern aggression, I have heard so many Northern aggression jokes that people are jumping on your bandwagon now.
Good. Well, thank Southern elementary school history teachers for calling it the War of Northern Aggression.
Yeah.
Instead of the Civil War.
So there was some stuff that we gathered, some news that we gathered. I do think the number one thing that I was curious about from a Notre Dame perspective, and I went and I asked the offensive line coach and I asked the player, and they were kind of like, I don't know. And then other people over there asking the head coach, and he was like, yeah. Marcus Freeman confirming that Charles Jagusaw, who we have been told that Notre Dame writers have been saying it is Jagusaw, not Jagusaw, which is what I have been saying.
And it's not Jagusa.
It's not Jagusa. Chucky Jagusa, as he's sometimes called. Yeah. Charles Jagusaw will start at left tackle. And Freeman said, like, that's the plan. He's been practicing at left tackle, and he was supposed to be the left tackle in the preseason. He tore his pec. He's been coming back all year. They put him in at right guard in the semifinal against Penn State when they had an injury there. And then when they had an injury at left tackle, they put somebody else in. But this is, I think, what everybody assumed is the logical solution for Notre Dame, and the idea that with all the injuries they've had on the offensive line, they're winding up with their projected starting left tackle, who was a huge being their left tackle in the national championship game, is like, there certainly will be some continuity questions. And like Mike Kadick talked about that on our last show, how that can be an issue, but he's the best man for the job.
He is. And I guess I do wonder maybe what would have happened had Tosh Baker performed a little better against Penn State. I didn't think he played very well in that game. There was the added element too of like, will Rocco Spindler be healthy for this game? The right guard who Jagasol took over for in the Orange Bowl. I guess he's going to be, or perhaps they could maybe look at Sam Pendleton there. I guess we'll see. That has not been a question, it seems, from the Notre Dame people as much as what's going on at left tackle. So I'm assuming there's an assumption there that Rocco Spindler will be fine to play. So it's a weird way for Charles Jagasol to get to the point where he is finally starting at left tackle for Notre Dame. I would be lying if I said I wasn't a little nervous just about throwing a guy, like I think I said this the other day, like throwing a guy out there practically for the first time at that position in this game against this defensive front. But I do think it makes sense for Notre Dame. He's healthy. He got himself on the mend. He played very well at right guard against Penn State. So there's certainly a strong possibility that he'll play well at left tackle against Ohio State. But I'll be watching it for sure. Like the first couple offensive snaps, I think for Notre Dame, I'll be pretty locked in on that left tackle spot.
So I like talking to Joe Rudolph, the Notre Dame offensive line coach. I talked to him again today about this, and he said that since they got the word from trainers that like pretty early in the season after he got hurt in the preseason that, hey, like if you guys get to the playoff, he might have a chance to come back. So this has not been a complete shock. And Joe Rudolph said they knew he could play tackle, but they started working him in at guard as he started to come back to practice just to continue to add depth because, you know, they've had so many injuries. They knew it might be a case. And Rudolph said they were purposefully working him on the left and right side equally because they just did not know where they might need him. And so last week when they get a left tackle injury, Anthony Knapp, I said hello to him. It's so unfortunate. Left tackle, true freshman who took over for Jagasol, did a really good job as a true freshman this year, gets hurt in that game against Penn State and is like walking around in a boot here. And it's just not what you want to see. But he's out. But they worked him both at left and right, and they worked him guard and tackle so that he would be. So Joe Rudolph said we wanted him to be ready at 4 spots. So then last week when there was an injury at left tackle and right guard, that week he had worked more at right guard.
Got it.
And Tosh Baker, who went at left tackle, had worked more at left tackle. So that's why they did that in that moment. But I don't think it means that they don't think Jagasol would be ready for this now because now they're working him at left tackle. But the whole idea was be ready at 4 spots. We don't know what's going to happen.
That makes sense. I guess I'm actually thankful for that explanation because I did think it was a little strange because it's not like Sam Pendleton, who had started the year at one of the guard spots, can't remember which side, was available to play. Like, yes. and the Charles Jagasol went in instead of him. I was like, oh, that's a little strange. First of all, because I didn't know he was available to play.
Right.
But secondly, because in our minds, he was a tackle. But credit to him, man, because that's not easy to do. We've had a lot of those conversations on the Ohio State side of things as it relates to Donovan Jackson. You can play a guy at guard and tackle. There's no guarantee that he's going to be good at both. In fact, it's quite difficult, I think, to be good at both. And Donovan Jackson's done it very well for Ohio State. And like I said, we haven't seen Charles Jagasol just yet, but I think he will probably end up doing pretty well there for Notre Dame as well.
Yeah, so that's a big deal. And he, you know, a lot of questions about what's harder to transition from guard to tackle, what's harder to transition from right to left. He said, like, you know, like the one guys have said, it's like you're changing your wiping hand. You know,
I think
like,
the sides are different. Yeah,
that's what he said. He thought is more difficult.
Yeah.
Because really, if you're a tackle, the harder thing is for a guy like Donovan Jackson, who maybe the build more naturally is guard, and now you're bumping out, and you have to be longer, maybe a little bit quicker when you've been more of a road grinder inside. I think that can be difficult. But Jagasol has a tackle build. Yeah. And as it turns out, Donovan Jackson is like, he might be a tackle now. He's been so good at this. So, but that's always like the thing, right? Can you imagine? I mean, I almost feel like that would be not a good off-season show, but if everybody, sometimes I like fans being able to try to relate to athletes. Like when I covered a little bit of boxing back in the day, I said, like, just stand in your living room and for 3 minutes go like this.
Oh.
And don't even worry about dodging anybody or actually trying to connect. Just throw punches for 3 minutes and see what you feel like at the end of the round. It's going to feel, your arms are going to feel like spaghetti.
Yeah.
Now think about doing this while someone's trying to
punch you
knock
back.
You out. Now you're going like this. Like just this. The average human, and I am less than an average human, can't even do this for 3 rounds. Sometime between now and the national championship game, when you're taking care of business, try an opposite wipe and see how it goes.
That's not where I thought you were going with that, but relatable.
You know, we're getting a lot of honey.
Yeah,
we're getting a lot of honey. I need a jug of Clorox bleach and a new pair of underwear.
Why?
Because Doug
was trying to walk a mile in Charles Jagisaw shoes.
Regular humans are so weak. God, we're a lot.
Yeah.
So
Mike has the tweet, by the way, from the, I don't know who put it up there. It's Go Dogs. It's in the middle of downtown Atlanta.
Let's show it.
Yeah. It's rather.
Is it glorious?
Desperate. No.
Is it glorious?
Yeah, we can say there's a little bit of a delay. Yeah, for us.
Go Dogs.
On our end. Yeah.
Look at that.
Bunch of losers.
Like no shame. Because the other thing I've seen is
have some shame.
I don't know who's putting it up. I think it's the apparel companies, but there've been a lot of digital billboards around for Ohio State.
Yeah, and
with a Nike swoosh. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, man, there's really a lot of Ohio State. And then I saw like one of them, it flipped and it was a Notre Dame Under Armour board.
Yeah,
like with an Irish.
By the way, did you see Under Armour's blunder yesterday?
No, what'd they do?
They accidentally, for a brief moment, posted, I don't know if they posted it for sale, but at least it got leaked, their post-game championship t-shirt for Notre Dame that said played like a champion today, that they were going to sell if Notre Dame wins the national title, but they released it too early.
Oh, that's like one of those, that's like the Billy Ripken baseball card with the thing on the knob. Like if you can get one of those played like a champion shirts that came out early.
Yeah.
That could be
but
big
then
on the
but then they don't win.
And they don't win.
Then now if you got one of those t-shirts, the shirt is more valuable now if Notre Dame loses.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I don't think there's any Irish fans who are like, well, you know, I'd really like this t-shirt to be worth $100.
Yeah.
So I hope my team doesn't win. That was I thought like actually that's like news that we had to find out.
Yeah, there
about
was
Notre Dame. Is there equivalent Ohio State news?
I think that I mean not quite the same thing, not moving pieces or anything like that, but some questions about JT Tuimoloau's ankle that he injured against Texas in the Cotton Bowl. He came back in that game. It looked, when it happened, it looked pretty gnarly. We were all watching him on the sideline. He went into the tent. He came out. He was running up and down the field, but he did play in the second half of that game. So I don't think there was any concern that he wasn't going to be available in this game. It was just more, I think, what kind of version of him are you going to get? And there doesn't seem to be any concerns about that. I know Pete Thamel tweeted during media day, I guess JT told him it was kind of just like rolling your ankle in basketball, but he'll have 10 days, I guess, in between the injury and the next game to heal. And then at Ohio State's practice on Saturday, like he wasn't spatted up. He didn't have like a big brace or something like that on his ankle. So I think he should be good to go. Denzel Burke was at media day, was at practice as well after coming out of that game with an injury against Texas. So I think Ryan Day has said multiple times, like he thinks they're pretty healthy, all things considered, going into their 16th game of the season.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, I talked to Denzel Burke. I didn't ask him how he was feeling. That's all right. That's my bad.
But his mere presence, I think, suggested that he's probably feeling fine.
I did ask Denzel Burke like how he feels like with everything, you know, they've been through to be here, and his answer was like, I don't really like media day. And I was like, no. Like, not right. I said, I know. Like, why would you? Like, what is this? Like, oh man, I can't wait to talk to that Kings of the. Sure, he's gonna have great questions. I was like, no, not this, but like that you get to play here. Like, this is kind of a cool thing.
It would have been 10 times funnier if you asked him all that while wearing a crown and a cape.
So that was that was quite an internal and briefly external discussion for us that I did wear. Handed it out to a couple people. I'm going to hand out more. I brought more, but I did not wear the cape. I brought the cape, which I also have now a Kings of the North logo on the cape, and I brought the crown, but then I kind of like chickened out and didn't wear them. So were you disappointed that I didn't wear them, or you were relieved?
No, I think you need to make that decision for yourself. I support you either way. I'm surprised you didn't wear it. I was pretty certain you would, but I think I can envision you walking amongst the people on Monday before the game. Yeah. Although it will be 30 degrees here, so maybe the cape will help.
It'll just be like, well, it's the warmest thing I have. This Jon Snow cape. Yeah. So it's a very logical thing. So I think I do think I'll be out and about in it. I did not wear it at media day where I tried to be a little bit more of a professional journalist. What do you think of? You know, there's a lot made of with the retirement of Nick Saban. Jimbo Fisher's not doing this anymore. Coach O's not doing this anymore. that the only current active head coaches with national titles are Kirby Smart and Dabo Swinney, and that we are here with Ryan Day and Marcus Freeman. I don't know, like, do they seem like national championship coaches to you?
I think so. I think they seem like modern national championship coaches.
That's well said.
Yeah, right. I think, I think people know what I mean by that. There's a way that for a long time, I believe that job was done and it was effective, that I think probably doesn't have legs anymore in a player where players are more in an era where players are more empowered. They have incredible freedom of movement. They're paid now. It's just a totally different dynamic than it used to be. And I think, if Nick Saban wasn't in his 70s, I think perhaps he could have adjusted to that or had the energy to adjust to that. It just so happened that it happened while he was in his 70s. So, like, why not just retire and go out the way he went out? But I think Ryan Day and Marcus Freeman have a tremendous handle on how to manage this new world of college football, like from roster management and everything else about it, while also being pretty darn good at the X's and O's of it. So, yes, I think, would you have said 10 years ago that they seem like national championship coaches? Maybe you would have said no, just because of kind of how young they are, especially Marcus. But I think now that helps them. And there's a balance there too, that like, I think that can get really tricky on you very, very quickly. That like relatable player coach, like we view him as one of us kind of thing. There's real power in that, but it can get away from you. Like, you can see too much of your power, and when it's like your team is now sort of like running your program, like you don't want that either. But I think both these guys do a tremendous job of that. So I definitely think that each of them feels like a national title coach. Only one of them will be, I guess, after this, but I think they both have it.
It is interesting. Both Urban Meyer and Nick Saban are in this next class of college football Hall of Famers. Yeah. And there really is a line there. Do you feel like, I mean, we've talked a lot on this show about Nick Saban leaving and the hole that left in the SEC and the hole that left in the South, but do you also see it as a changing of the guard a little bit? Like, I guess I don't know how Dabo and Kirby fit into that right now, but it does open opportunities for this next generation of head coaches who I don't know that Marcus Freeman and Ryan Day would ever make a career of their grumpiness selling insurance.
Yeah.
Or their grumpiness selling come stay at my house, right? Or whatever. Like, that's that the defining, and that, like, if Urban Meyer was doing, like, Urban Meyer isn't grumpy, but he's like, it was like almost like a maniacalness, right? That and like, I'm not even necessarily saying in a bad way, like that edge that. But that's not what these guys are. That you said this is like the modern coach. Maybe they're the leaders of the new era.
Yeah, I think there is something to it, and I know not everyone likes it, where like you do have to manage emotions a little more. I think, which I don't know the previous generations of coaches were built for or even interested in.
Yeah.
And I think these guys understand that. I think Kirby Smart does probably. And I actually don't know offhand how old Kirby is relative to even Ryan Day. I think Kirby's like,
I think he's late 40s,
50, like 48, 49. So about the same age. And even Dabo, like you see 49. I think Dabo Swinney, when you see Clemson being a little more open to the idea of the transfer portal, it's just rigidness and adhering to the old ways of doing things that I don't think have a place in college football anymore. And maybe the only person I would ascribe that to would have been Dabo Swinney, but even now he seems like he's evolving. So I don't think the game is necessarily passing guys like that by, but I do think maybe, and I don't think Kirby Smart is suddenly handing it over to Ryan Day and Marcus Freeman, but perhaps that guys like that are rising and are going to be kind of stewards for it together moving forward. Like, maybe for so long it felt like Nick Saban was like the only one kind of pushing forward college football, and maybe now it is more a collective of head coaches where one is not quite above the others, but there are probably, I could see a handful being part of that class over the coming years. The two we're talking about, Kirby Smart, perhaps Dabo gets back there, maybe someone like Steve Sarkisian, perhaps James Franklin if he can get Penn State a little further than he got them this year. I don't think you necessarily have to win a national championship to be part of that class, but I think you have to have a regular presence, probably in the quarterfinals, semifinals kind of thing to be part of it.
Yeah. So we did try to use our time this morning to ask some guys about those two head coaches. So why don't we start with Marcus Freeman, because he's the one that it felt like the way he relates to players is really where guys went the most. These are what Notre Dame players had to say about Marcus Freeman. We're back. We got a little freezing.
I guess.
We got a little freezy action, little freezy pop, little free. Like, look at me.
It's
look
frozen
how
on
excited
you. Yeah.
Jadarian Price is to talk to me. Did you see the look? You know who was great? Jadarian Price. Great guy.
Yeah. I enjoyed, because I know the Ohio State guys a little more than I know the Notre Dame guys. They were all good. All the Notre Dame guys were really enjoyable to talk to.
Yeah. So one of the things, and this is interesting. I talk. Listen, on the Friday show, I just try to tell you everything I know about Marcus Freeman and Ryan Day. But one of the things everybody was doing today was talking to James Laurinaitis, who James Laurinaitis and Marcus Freeman were teammates at Ohio State. They were in each other's weddings. They've been asked about this a million times. James Laurinaitis is now the linebackers coach at Ohio State. And he had been in the media and had been interested, I think, in getting into coaching for a little bit of time.
Mm-hmm.
And it turned out that his entry point was not Ohio State, it was Notre Dame. And he first started there when one of his best friends, Marcus Freeman, got the head job. He went there. He wasn't a full-time assistant, but he worked with the linebackers. I think he was very instrumental with like on-campus linebacker recruiting and that kind of stuff. So I asked James about that today. We're just talking. And he said that, like, I sort of asked like how instrumental Marcus Freeman was in him getting into coaching. And this is very relatable, I think, to what people say about Marcus, is that he said he had to double check to make sure that he could still be like the person he wanted to be while coaching. Because he had a cushy job in the media where you just sit around and talk about sports.
Yeah,
you're not
on
accountable,
Columbus Radio,
and you don't have to work that hard.
No,
and you just show up like, I think this.
Right.
And so he was really good at it. But he said Marcus showed him, like, as a husband and father, how you can do it. And obviously you're gone a lot, but he said, like, you have to be very intentional about it and make sure you are prioritizing things and making sure you are focusing on being with your family as much as you can be, and that you're there with them. And that Marcus showed him how to do that. And that, so James, that allowed, I think, James to pursue the thing that had always been in the back of his head. I want to try this coaching thing. Yeah. And so he does that at Notre Dame. Then it goes well enough that then he comes to Ohio State. And now he winds up back over at Ohio State. But I mean, he's there in the recruitment of a bunch of those linebackers, Jalen Sneed and Drake Bowen. I mean, he was coaching Jack Kaiser. Like he knows Xavier Watson, Riley Mills, and like all these defensive guys. So again, there's all these crossovers, just like Al Washington, who worked at Ohio State and then went to Notre Dame, has a bunch of guys that he worked with and knows, like, there's crossover for him. But it is, again, I get caught up in it sometimes too much, because I cover James and Marcus as players. And the thing that's like interesting about that to me, and Marcus has been asked about this along the way, is that James Laurinaitis and Marcus Freeman didn't win national championships as players. They got to the national title game twice and lost. And one of them is going to walk away with the ring on Monday night, right? Only one, but at least one of them, of that era of Ohio State players, is going to get the ring now that they didn't get then. And the fact that James Laurinaitis is in position to do that, at least some part of that is attributable to his friend Marcus Freeman. Yeah, it's kind of, the connection's crazy. I wonder too, James probably couldn't answer it now, but I'm interested, like, down the line as he gets further into his coaching career, if there's going to be a part of him that's thankful that he didn't start his career at Ohio State, right? I just think it's beneficial sometimes to get away, like, because James was in Columbus. He wasn't part of the Ohio State staff, but he was in Columbus. He's a Buckeye through and through. And I'm sure, like, Marcus Freeman runs his program a lot of the same ways that Jim Tressel ran his program, and it's probably a lot of the ways that James Laurinaitis is ever head coach will want to run his program. So there's some ideological overlap there, but I just think getting out of a place that's familiar to you and going to South Bend, even for the short period that he was there, probably was beneficial for James Laurinaitis. And then he got to come back to the place that I think probably he's supposed to be, right? At Ohio State, doing what he's doing now. Yeah. All right, let's go back to our Marcus Freeman interviews. We'll try it. Producer Mike says we're going to try it, talking to Notre Dame players about their coach. All right, Freezy Freeze. We have the Ethernet here in the
I think
it's the room,
let me use your
but
computer.
it's not quite happening for us. We'll see if we can get these going. Because again, I just like looking at myself on camera. So like for me to be standing with Jadarian Price is something that I want the people to be able to take in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I like to watch myself too to see my size compared to college football players, soon to be NFL players. Because then I get funny texts about how we're the same size, or even I'm bigger.
Oh yeah, you might be. I don't know that there's a lot of college football players who get interviewed by someone bigger than them.
I talked to Al Washington, former Ohio State linebackers coach, current Notre Dame defensive line coach, and in the middle of our interview, which maybe we'll play part of it tomorrow, he just stopped and goes like, "You played ball, right?" And I was like, "Very poorly and for a very short period of time." But yeah, I think it is. I think it probably is rare. But I mean, there are former players real deal for former players like walking around who are now working in media talking to these guys, so it's not like they're unfamiliar with it. But yeah, I think sometimes it helps me that people think that I play the game at a moderately high level, and I promise you I did not.
Yeah. Mike, should we take a break?
Just keep going.
All right. So let's talk about this. I think there are some vibes that you get just from being around stuff and talking to people here. Does it feel like the general view of this game at the moment is that Ohio State has some more talent, but Notre Dame has fought its butt off to get here, and if Ohio State's not ready with its A game, Notre Dame is going to give the Buckeyes a real fight?
I think that is one way to view the same idea. The other is, and I believe it was our friend Ari Wasserman asked this question of Marcus Freeman almost verbatim, where he said, in order for Notre Dame to win this game, you have to drag Ohio State into a rock fight and try to win it 20-17. I think that is a prevailing sentiment here. That Ohio,
did Marcus agree with that?
Marcus said, you have to do what you've done all year.
Okay.
You have to. It's an expanded version of will or will not Notre Dame play a bunch of man coverage in this game. Notre Dame has an identity. It knows it needs to run the ball. It knows it needs to stop the run. That is its mindset going into this game. I don't think it's going to show up on Monday night and start to be a team that tries to throw it 45 times a game and beat Ohio State that way. So there is an acknowledgement of the idea that I think styles make fights, and whose style is going to be the one that sets the terms here. But I also believe what I think I said to you the other day, I think Ohio State is capable of winning a game that is uglier too. They kind of just did that against Texas. So whether or not Notre Dame is able to win a different, multiple styles of game, I think is under some debate. But I don't have any doubt that Notre Dame can beat Ohio State if it becomes a slower paced, limited possession, run the football, play well on special teams, really limit explosive plays kind of game.
So I think it's possible that we are going too far with that idea. Maybe if you look at the recruiting classes, and again, there's some people that brought this up. The last three Notre Dame recruiting classes, the current freshmen, the current sophomores, and the current third-year guys are, I just looked it up and then I think they are fifth, and seventh in average star rating by recruiting class. And so, Ohio State in those situations third, and second, but this is a top, under Marcus Freeman, this is a top 5 recruiting team. Now, they weren't really that before, right? Their senior class is more by average star rating is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So some of the older guys they play, right, are not maybe have the same kind of pedigree. And then part of it is some of their best players their highest recruited guys are out and hurt, like Ben Morrison. But there are guys like John, you saw, is a huge recruit.
Yeah.
Right? Jalen Sneed at linebacker is a huge recruit. Right? Jeremiah Love.
Couple of their linebackers are. Jaden Osbury was, and Drake Bowen was.
Yeah. And they're young guys who play. Jeremiah Love was a huge recruit, top 100 recruit. Like Jaden Greathouse was a big get at receiver for them. So I don't think it is wrong to say Ohio State's more talented. And the thing that Ohio State is their talent is more experienced. Whereas Notre Dame is kind of experienced, and then their uber talented guys are a little younger. But also, they filled in a lot of holes with young guys. When Ben Morrison gets hurt, they put in true freshman Leonard Moore at corner. When Joggy Saw gets hurt, they put in true freshman Anthony App at left tackle. And Neas Williams as a true freshman become their third running back. The linebackers that you mentioned, they're second-year guys who are making real impact. So if there are Notre Dame people watching or listening who feel like Notre Dame has been unfairly characterized as a rock fight team, I see what they're saying. Now, part of it is in smart when you're comparing it to Ohio State or Georgia, which happens to be a couple of the teams they've played, and when you compare it to a third-year Ohio Penn State class that had a bunch of guys for 5 stars and that kind of thing. But this is also part of what I talked about on Friday. It's like Notre Dame's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
This is just the beginning for Notre Dame. But also, I think it is worth saying that they have some dudes too. They just don't have 8 fourth-year guys who were 5-star recruits who are the heartbeat of their team like Ohio State has.
Yeah.
So,
but
I'm aware of that.
But I don't know. I don't think like rock fight or whatever is a conversation about talent level.
Okay.
I think it's just a conversation about style of play.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that people think Michigan wasn't talented last year. They just knew that Michigan had style, right? And I think that applies to Notre Dame as well. And it's honestly, it's a Jeremiah Smith conversation. It's like, Notre Dame doesn't have Jeremiah Smith and Mecca Book and Carnell Tate. They have Jaden Greathouse, who's a high recruit and at times has looked that part, but not every single week. Bo Collins was a highly rated recruit, transferred in from Clemson, but has not looked like that every single week. And you just flip on Ohio State on a random Saturday, and you see receivers like doing stuff you've never seen happen before.
Right.
And that's just like a very easy shorthand, I think, for people to hold on to. But I don't think it's a conversation about talent. It might be about depth of talent. I think Ohio State probably has a little more depth in its recruiting classes and therefore in its roster in this game. But starting 22, I think Ohio State is ahead. I don't think it's worlds ahead. And there's always the conversation of like, well, how many guys for Notre Dame would start for Ohio State? And I don't mind that conversation. But I think there are some on the defensive side of the ball that would start for Ohio State, right? A couple, I think, like Xavier Watts, definitely Xavier Watts start for everybody. I think one of those corners or two of those corners would be starting caliber players
at Ohio State. It's not even always about like, is RJ Oben better than JT Tuimoloau? Is like when you look at the RJ Oben, do you think, oh yeah, that guy could play at Ohio State, or that guy could play at whatever the perceived power program is that particular season? I think Notre Dame, there are probably more answers. There are more guys you would say yes about that now than maybe you would have 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Not yet, Mike. Is that right? Not yet. Can we have an Ohio State fan conversation that I think you had some interesting points about?
Yeah.
I have been I think Notre Dame's all in. Could there be obviously Notre Dame fan base after the Northern Illinois is like, oh my gosh, how can this be happening again after the Marshall loss previously and other, early in Marcus Freeman's career. And like, here we are, we're a playoff contender and we lose to a MAC team, but they have had so long to get past that. There's nobody. And this has been such a climb for Notre Dame. They haven't won a national championship since 1988. Brian Kelly was very successful, but I don't know that he was beloved, right? And now you have this, and a million people have written that Marcus Freeman not only is succeeding with Notre Dame, but somehow making Notre Dame lovable, right? That like the previously, I mean, if blue blood successful program, if you're not a fan of them, a lot of times you give them the stink eye, right?
Yeah.
So like people give Ohio State the stink eye, they give Michigan the stink eye, they give Notre Dame the stink eye, they give Bama the stink eye, right? Not that we would do that, but so that's just normal. But there is not a single Fighting Irish fan in the world who since like mid-October was anything but let's go Irish. We can do this. I believe in this team. I believe in this guy. Like, how could you possibly be anything other than that?
I'm just trying to run back through Notre Dame season to think when a moment that would create any doubt might have even surfaced. Like maybe the USC game at times toward the end of the year, because that was a little tighter than a lot of the other games that Notre Dame had played. But I
played only a single one-score game since the Northern Illinois lots. That was Louisville, and USC they ran some picks back at the end. That was tighter, but
maybe it's the Louisville game because I got a little wonky in the middle too. So I don't know. It felt like that Northern Illinois game happened, and I'm sure for probably, I don't know, 2-3 weeks, Notre Dame fans are like, I can't believe we lost that game because Marcus Freeman had lost the Marshall game a couple of years ago. Like it was not the first time Notre Dame had lost a game like that. But then as the momentum starts building, I have sensed nothing other than like everybody being on board with, let's put that in the rear view, let's overcome it and get to the playoff because we have a feeling of what we could do once we get there. So yeah, I agree with you. After the initial sort of like, I can't believe that happened, lost to Northern Illinois, I think Notre Dame has been all in.
So Ohio State, their loss they have to overcome is the last game of the regular season. It's against their rival. It's a completely different thing. And I have mentioned on several different shows, whether it's here, whether it's our Ohio State focus show that we do once a week, that I want any team and any fan base to be united, especially when you are at this point of the season. And I have wondered and questioned whether Ohio State and its fans were united. At times in the past couple of years, Ohio State, sometimes Ohio State says Ohio versus the world, Ohio against the world. Sometimes they say the Woody against the world, which that's the Woody Hayes Athletic Center is their football headquarters building, which means like it's just us. Like it's not the fan with us. It's just the team and the coaches, the people in this bubble against the world. And even our millions of fans are the world in that situation. But you feel like Ryan Day in the last couple of days is maybe going out of his way to make sure he is embracing the fans.
I think so. So Ohio State landed here on Friday night, and it was like a 4 or 5 minute press conference with each head coach when they got here. And I think maybe the first thing Ryan Day said was expressing an appreciation for the send-off that Ohio State got in Columbus. And he was talking about 4 and 5 year olds telling them like who their favorite Ohio State player is. And I think he said like an 80-year-old woman who was like holding a sign that said something supportive to them. And then he was talking about, people who were watching the game back in Columbus, people who might be watching the game internationally. And he said several times, like, we need everybody. And then immediately today, he was asked a question along the same lines and was talking about it more. But took it even further and was discussing, one of the things about this playoff is Ohio State is now playing its third neutral site game, and the same is true for Notre Dame. It has been expensive for people to follow Ohio State to all these places. It's been expensive for people to follow Notre Dame to all these places. And I think, perhaps forcing himself to take at least a beat to reflect on what this journey has meant for the Ohio State football program, Ryan Day seems to have also found an appreciation for the people that have been supporting them along the way. I think he knows he lost a portion of the fan base after that Michigan game. And I don't even know if he's necessarily like been out of shape by that, because I think he understands the nature of his position, but it does take some time to get over it. And I think he has, and I think the team has, and I think they're pretty connected to their fan base. And I don't it almost made me feel like Ryan Day like listened to the show that we did on the Ohio State channel a couple days ago, running through just people's evolving emotions and thoughts and opinions on him and the job that he's done. In a way that, and I don't think he actually did that, it just kind of dovetailed, I guess, but I wasn't sure that would be on his mind, or even if it was, that he would express it. I thought, like, while acknowledging what this season has been and the sacrifices that the King staff have had to make and the players have had to make, and this has been a long season, he also kind of like lumped the fans in with them and some of the sacrifices they had to make to be along with Ohio State on this ride. And I think there's an appreciation was born out of that I certainly wasn't expecting.
Because it doesn't mean, this whole conversation along the way is when you talk about like only the squeaky wheels, only the lunatic fringe. And then you end up in a debate about like how big it is. And it's like, well, whatever it is much smaller than the fans who love their team through thick and thin for any team.
Mm-hmm.
That's Notre Dame, that's Ohio State, that's Michigan, that's Penn State. Right? We get like thick and thin. And so it's nice to have a coach talk about that.
Yeah.
So it doesn't, I mean, maybe you're still mad, right? It doesn't mean you still can't. But like, oh, by the way, and there were Ohio State and Notre Dame fans out here at Media Day. You could come and watch the players. Some players went and signed autograph afterwards. There were people, they're wearing their team's colors. They're out here early. They just want to be around it. And there are people driving down all over the place. There are families here. There are people spending this money. And I think it is a very worthy thing and well done by Ryan Day to acknowledge that, because there has been such a conversation the other way. Mm-hmm. That like most of the conversation nationally about Ohio State fans has a negative tinge this year. And if he is doing it with purpose, then good for him, because it's $2,000 into this game.
It is $2,000 to get in this game. And one of the things I was struck by talking to a couple of the fans too, is like, they're here without a ticket. They're here hoping they can, the prices I think continue to go up actually, instead of going down. But they just want to be here in Atlanta with these two teams, even if they're not going to the game. And we're not surprised by that. These are the two of the most passionate fan bases and largest fan bases in North American sports, if not the world. So I'm not surprised that they're here, but we know how much this means to them, right? I think you and I doing this have a tremendous appreciation for that. And I think when you're a part of the team, you're preoccupied by other things. You don't always have an opportunity to stop and like, oh yeah, like we're doing this for us. We want to win a national title. We're doing this for the lettermen and the former coaches and the program and all that stuff. Man, there are a lot of people who are emotionally invested and tied into this thing, who are pushing you along on the ride too. And I think now that the game is 2.5, 3 days away, at least Ryan Day seems like he's taking account of that. Okay,
we are going to take a quick break, get some things sorted out, hopefully come back and show you some of the interviews we did at Media Day. We appreciate you guys being here with us on this special Saturday edition of Kings of the North. Give us a signal when we're back. Back on Kings of the North, in a room, an empty room, where we can shout. Whisper Doug was that's no way to live, right? You didn't like Whisper Doug.
You felt like a caged beast in New Orleans.
Sugar Bowl Whisper Doug is nobody wants that.
He needs to be a free range podcaster.
Yeah. I might go for a lap here. One of the things, so Rich Clark, who is the executive director of the College Football Playoff now, took over for Bill Hancock, was here today. And he was asked about possible changes for the playoff. And I think there are numerous things that will be tweaked and evolve. I think we'll probably get from 12 to 14 sooner than later. That certainly has been discussed. But one of the things that he definitely acknowledged was the idea of, could the quarterfinals be on campus? So right now we have those great four, and it just, one of the things that happened is it could not have gone better in terms of the teams that wound up hosting. To have Penn State, Notre Dame, Ohio State, and Texas host is, if you could, I'm not sure you wouldn't pick those four, right? We certainly would. You pick the North. But so that was remarkable for those stadiums, those fan bases to have that opportunity. I'm okay, actually, at the moment with these quarterfinals at traditional bowl sites. But one of the things that would happen is, right, so if we did it this way, you would wind up in a situation where you would get four different teams that are hosting, because the bye teams are now hosting in the quarterfinals. So Ohio State and Oregon, that would have been at Oregon. Notre Dame and Georgia, that would have been at Georgia. Penn State and Boise State, that would have been at Boise. And Arizona State and Texas would have been at Arizona State.
Yeah.
So one of the things is like, oh, well, I mean, I don't know if you want to give a team 2 home games, but it wouldn't be. Like, by definition, it wouldn't be. And it would add an advantage to those bye teams. Not only are you getting a bye, because I think there's certainly been a discussion of, is the bye actually an advantage, rust versus rest? Should they do that? Campus sites for the quarters.
I think so, for a couple of reasons. One, I like the idea of giving more incentive to those teams that got that bye, or giving more reward, I guess, to those teams that got that bye, by allowing them to play a home game. I think the environments are better. The playoff got lucky that Ohio State and Texas got to play in Texas, because that was a pretty charged environment. But I'm sure it was awesome.
But that's a semi.
No, but I'm just saying, whatever. Like, sometimes you'll get lucky, and there will be.
Well, let me interrupt you. For the first time ever on this show, I'm interrupting you.
Yeah,
this is a new experience. Would you have rather had Ohio State, Oregon at the Rose Bowl, or at Autzen Stadium in Oregon?
I was going to say they got lucky too that they got a traditional Rose Bowl matchup, but they're not always going to get that. So it'll be year to year. I think there'll be times we think, oh yeah, that worked, because I think the Rose Bowl was great. I just think it makes more sense to reward those teams with home games. Like, I think, or the fact that Ohio State got to play at home and Oregon didn't is like a kind of bizarre. It's like a weird quirk of the system that we created that I don't necessarily think is a right thing. If home games are going to be part of this system, then the best teams that earned it should get to play a home game, and that's not the way we're set up right now. That said, like, I love the Rose Bowl, I love the Cotton Bowl. Those were both great. Didn't seem like the Fiesta Bowl was popping all that much, or it didn't seem like the Peach Bowl was popping all that much when Texas and Arizona State had to play here in Atlanta. So I'm in favor of it, and I'm in favor of it too for the fans, because it's one less expensive trip that they would have to pay for to follow their team along in the playoff. I guess the trade-off is you don't get as many opposing fans in theory at that game, but that's also sort of the point of this. Like, Ohio State, Tennessee was kind of a split crowd. That was a very odd dynamic that perhaps we may never even see again. But I just I've heard from enough people just how financially taxing this has been to try to follow Ohio State or Notre Dame or whatever along on this journey. And some fans can afford it because they're very blessed and fortunate to do so. Others, as Ryan Day said, to go back to our previous conversation, are like taking out loans to afford tickets to some of these games. Now, this national championship ticket is astronomically priced compared to what a lot of the other playoff games were, but it ain't cheap to fly to California. It ain't cheap to fly to Phoenix for people who are northern based or East Coast based or whatever that is. So I just think for a lot of logistical and football reasons, it would make sense for the quarterfinals to be on home sites.
So in the first round, all the home teams won. All the better seeds won. In the second round, none of the better seeds won. Do you think that would change? Like, how much of that is, so there's 10 things to discuss in that, but do you think that would have happened if those games were at the home sites for the better seeds?
I don't think we would have gotten a sweep across the board.
Yeah.
If those games were home games. Yeah.
So I think, would you have to, if you make that change, would you have to pair it with conference champs no longer getting those buys? Because the buys become even more valuable, that you're getting not just a bye, but also a home game. And then to award a bye and home game to a team that might be the 14th best team in the country, would you? Because like that situation for like, you know, Penn State is ranked higher than Boise, but because we have the automatic bids, automatic buys for the conference champs, like, and then that game's at Boise.
I don't think that's a really good question, actually. Maybe you should guarantee that a conference champ gets to play a home game, but not guarantee that they get a bye, right? So like if Boise doesn't get the bye, they would at least play their first round game at home, that kind of thing. Can you do it that way? If you seed it, if you give out if you give out the buys according to just whatever the rankings are, and then if a conference champ in that exercise gets knocked back to the first round, they at least still get to host a home game the first round.
Would you make them
logistically possible?
Would you make them? Does that mean they'd have to be seeded 5 through 8, or could it be that they're the 10 seed but they still host?
I think it could be the 10 seed that they're still like. When applicable, conference championship should lead to a home game, and then like you could like reconfigure the field necessarily if you have to, and then if you're staring at a whatever 8-9 game that doesn't involve conference champions, then you just give it to the higher seed.
Because the thing is, like, you have to know ahead of time, right? Like, it's not like you could be like, well, if it's this team, then it'll be. I mean, I think that could be interesting, so that you're still rewarding a conference champ with something, but not with everything. What do you think about? So right now they bid out the national championship game separately. It's not part of the bowl structure.
Yeah.
So we have 6 traditional bowls that become the quarterfinal hosts and the semifinal hosts. If the quarterfinals are on home sites, you could make it that the national championship game is always one of those 6. The national championship game becomes a bowl, and the 2 semis are bowls, and now it's an every other year rotation. That 3 this year, 3 that year. And the other thing that I think is possibly interesting about this is, what did you think of bowl season this year? The quality of play, the level of interest in the bowls that were not part of the playoff.
It seemed higher, right? And the games were better, right? Well, I think there's like data that tells us that there was more interest, like TV ratings wise, I think. But even the games themselves just seemed a little more compelling for some reason. Maybe that was just a random thing that has nothing to do with anything else.
So I agree with that. I think most people in college football would agree with that. And then to me, if you had said, well, South Carolina, Illinois is the Orange Bowl, or Miami, Iowa State is the Sugar Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because some of it to me, and I guess now I'm getting hung up. Now I'm a bowl honk. My God, how did that happen? I'm a bowl honk. Am I a traditional bowl honk?
I don't think so.
Because are
you suggesting you remove them entirely from the playoff apparatus, but they still exist as standalone games between teams that aren't in the playoff?
So I guess my question is, say you keep the 6 bowls as part of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That every 3 1 year, 3 the next. What do the 3 bowls who aren't part of the playoff? What are they? Like, they still want to exist.
I mean, that's what they were in the 14 playoff, right?
But they were
New Year's 6.
They were New Year's 6. They were getting number 5 versus number 8. They were getting number 7 versus number 11. Now you're putting teams in the playoff, and now it's like, what? The Orange Bowl? I thought the Orange Bowl was a big deal, and now it's. But I think, like, you know, they've lived up to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I don't know, like, is that my main concern? What if the Orange Bowl isn't as cool as it used to be because it's number 15 against number 22? And it's not cool. Shut up, Doug. That's literally the last thing on the list.
You know what? I want the Orange Bowl to be played Labor Day.
I know. Can I ask you one more thing? Where it's just sometimes I guess we'll have to do shows. We like to talk about like the ball at hand most of the time. Is there like an Army Navy has struck up in the last week, like moving Army Navy? Is that a thing?
Well, I don't understand why you.
But are we assuming that?
And you probably get better ratings for it.
What if Army Navy want to make the playoff? If Army Navy stay as it is and you move up the playoffs, are Army and Navy acknowledging we will never be a playoff participant?
Oh, I guess that's true.
But like,
yeah,
that's not what they're here for.
That's not.
Listen, why do Army and Navy exist?
To beat each other.
To fight for America, beat each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, you got denied the 12 seed to go play Oklahoma. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
I didn't come here for that.
Right.
That's not why I'm at Navy. So I could play Oklahoma in Norman in a first round game and then go fight our enemies. That's not why I'm here.
That's not why they're there, but I guess also you wouldn't want to deprive them the opportunity, right? We were not. It wasn't a super long series of events away from having Army being in the playoff this year, right? So I think we need to acknowledge it as a possibility.
No, it wasn't super long.
So yeah, I guess that complicates things. Play it in September. That's my solution to everything. Just play it in September.
But do you think rivalries are better at the end of the year? I do.
Yes. And I guess like that's a conference game now too. So I guess even that a little. Well, I guess not really. It's not a conference game after a conference championship. I don't know. That's such a unique thing. I think you can play that game whenever. Play in the parking lot on a Wednesday night in Sheboygan. They're going to show up to play Army Navy, right? So you're messing with like the tradition that exists in college football. So like I'm not trying to spit in the face of that, but I do think we need to be open-minded about how to make things work in this new era.
All right, to wrap up this conversation, so do you think we will get to campus site quarterfinals in this version of the playoffs sometime in the next couple of years?
Yes, I guess that my only other thought on that is like, what about the Rose Bowl? But if it's just that what you said, like depending on what the cycle is, the Rose Bowl is just the game between the fifth best Big Ten team and I don't know, somebody else since the Pac-12 doesn't exist. So I don't know, because the Rose Bowl seems unwilling to budge off of January 1st. But yes, I do think we will play quarterfinals on home fields in the next probably 2-3 years.
Because I guess I'll be very curious. I don't know if the bowl lobby is strong enough to hold that off anymore, but I just wonder if there might be some people left who still think it's the best thing. You know, that like that that's kind of cool. And it's kind of good for college football because the quarters were pretty sweet. You know, like after a first round that people weren't necessarily enamored with, like the quarters were pretty good.
You think the fact that well, no, because I think the people thought the semis were good.
Oh, that's true.
The quarters. What was the best quarterfinal again? Texas, Arizona State, I guess.
Texas,
right?
Arizona State. And that's the thing. And that's probably the worst matchup. I mean, like Arizona State and Texas in Atlanta didn't do much for anybody. So
didn't do anything for me, but we're Kings of the North. That's why.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, and then do you think that I am sure they're going to change the seedings because that's about the SEC and the Big Ten throwing their weight around.
Yeah, I think this will be the first and last playoff that looks how this one looked.
Yeah,
from a seeding standpoint. And
do you think that's fair or no?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'm okay with acknowledging some realities within the sport that it's probably harder to go 10-2 in the Big Ten than it is to win the Mountain West.
Okay.
Right? And we should maybe reward teams for that.
Okay. We're going to try it again. Marcus Freeman. What do his players think of him? Bill and I went around and asked a bunch of Notre Dame guys that at Media Day. Here we go.
Freeman like as a head coach?
No, Marcus is definitely he's definitely a player's coach. You know, he knows everyone on the team. He knows everyone's name. He knows, where you're from. He knows what you bring to the team, and he preaches every day that everyone on the team has a role. And I'm sure everyone on the team appreciates that. And just to hear your head coach like call you out in a meeting and say, "You're the reason why this receiver was able to have this release and make this catch because you gave him a good look." That's a testament to our scout team, and Coach does a great job of coaching the scout team sometimes and taking over the punt meetings and making sure, because he says punt is the most important phase of football. So just having that coach who understands football, who's a player's coach, who can lead as an example, as a husband, as a father. He has 6 kids. I mean, but to be able to have 6 kids at home and then come here being around 150 kids, I mean, it's not easy. So I really admire him as a coach.
Yeah, I think it's his ability, to rally a whole bunch of young guys and like really believe in what he's trying to say. I think he does a good job of really like laying out a plan and making players believe in what he's saying. So I think it's just his ability to rally young men and be able to listen to his message and get through to us.
How, beginning of the year, you guys take a loss you don't expect to take. And then from that point on, you guys have played like one of the, I think, obviously the two best teams in college football. What was Coach Freeman like after that game, and how has he maintained that throughout the course of this season?
Yeah, I mean, just like I said, just the plan he laid out for us. Obviously, things didn't go how we planned, but we believed in what he had in store for us. We believed in the coaches. We knew it was hard. I mean, it was an embarrassing loss, but, we found a way to continue to bounce back each week and just prepare better, get better each week, and, it's led us to where we are now.
He just inspires you. He's a great, first off, he's just a great person. And you see it with the way he treats his family, with the way he treats all of us as players. He's a great guy. And so having someone like that as a leader kind of pushes you to do it every single day for your teammates.
He's a great guy. I'm not going to say he's one of the guys, but he's definitely a really labeled kind of guy to be around. He understands us a lot, and he has kind of like an open door policy, man. You can just walk in, kind of go talk to him whatever you need. And he's the type of guy that will tell you the truth no matter what, if it hurts or not, and I think that's awesome. I respect him a lot for that, and so I think that's how you get better as a person, as a football player, as a man, and he always kind of relates himself to being a husband and a father, because he is that, but so I aspire to be one of both of those characteristics one day, and he just kind of shares his life experience with us, and how to get better at doing the little things, and he's not just a football coach, and he's a good mentor.
Super personable, just a great guy overall. You can go talk to him whenever, but he's also a phenomenal leader, and just encourages us that even though there's adversity in our daily lives, there's no reason that we shouldn't keep going and shouldn't keep pursuing excellence. And I think as a team we've really bought into that, and that's been a reason for our success.
He's a player's coach, you know what I mean? Just being able to put himself last for everything else, and put himself first, and anybody ever makes a mistake. It's very internal for him. Anything ever happens, it's like, what can I do better? How did I mess up, or something like that, or like, what can I do to fix it? You know what I mean? It could be something completely not in his, like somebody could just drop the ball or something like that, and he'd be like, dang, how can I fix that as a head coach? You know what I mean? And we're happy about that. He's a player's coach, he looks out for us, and we trust him.
I think resiliency has defined this entire Notre Dame season. Is any of that a reflection of your head coach?
Yeah. No, never. In all my time here, no matter what position we are, no matter how down we are, he's never ever been like, what are we gonna do? Like, no, he's always like, nah, screw that noise. Like, we still moving. You know what I mean? So like, I really do appreciate it. Never have I seen him be down, no matter how down we are or where we are in the game. Like, never has he ever been like, dang. Like, he's always like, all right, well, why don't we just keep rolling? You know what I mean? Just he makes sure we all have that mindset. He makes us keep going for sure.
I mean, he's everything you want and more. I think this is a guy that truly loves and cares about his players. He's not only worried about winning games, he's worried about winning at life and making sure we're set up for the future success. So I think he's done a tremendous job kind of putting us in a mindset that we're not worried about individual glory. We're not worried about stats, touchdowns, receptions, whatever it is. We're worried about the team, how the team win, how the team glory defines. So it starts top down. He's really showed an example for us that is unmatched anywhere in the country.
He's so young. He's so young.
Yeah. Doesn't really matter. I mean, the type of character he is, the type of guy he is, he could be 30, 40, whatever it is. It's a guy we'll follow, and we respect him so much.
And that's why I hate that guy. Oh, God, we back? Sorry. I'm definitely – a hot mic's going to end my career, yes or no?
Very likely.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's guaranteed. When I talked to Riley Leonard at the Orange Bowl about Marcus Freeman, he said, like, it's like Marcus Freeman's a player, right? Do you think he's going to get older and be less like a player?
He'll always be handsome, though.
So it's like he will be handsome. Yeah. I think he looks the same as he did like when he was 22, but it's not like if I said to you in 10 years, will Marcus Freeman still be relating to his coach like a player, relating to his players like a player? Like, no, he's 48. No. So like,
yeah, that changes. Yeah, that changes. Yeah, that's not
Yeah.
like when I was like my parents were young. So like when I was 21, my parents were like 40. And it was like, oh, we don't seem that far apart in age. Our relationship's kind of strange. And like now it's different because they're older, right? So, like, I think that that'll change with time. I'm sure like Marcus Freeman probably maybe will have a youthful energy about him, perhaps. Because I think for even Ryan Day, who's 8 years older than him, has that about him too. But no, eventually that idea of being like a player, I think runs its course. There's always the value in the perspective of having been a player to relate to players, right? But seeing someone as seeing your coach as a player, I think will change. Yeah,
it's just one of those things. Nobody was ever like Nick Saban. He's just like us.
He's just like yeah.
All right, we asked Ryan Day, same thing asked Ohio State players about Ryan Day, who is 45.
Mm-hmm.
So a little different, but what did they have to say about what it's like to be coached by him?
Fiery head coach, but he's also a brother. He's like a brother to us. And you get to go out there, man. He cares about his players to the deepest and most. And it's definitely surreal to be to have a coach. I wouldn't rather be coached by anybody else.
Has he always been fiery, or has he been getting more fiery through the course of this season?
Over the years, he's definitely his intensity just grew. I mean, he has a passion on his side. He loves to win. He wants to win bad, man. But he knows that his teammate is going to be next to him by his side at all times. So he goes out there and he's going to give us a business every time we go out there. So he's going to yell, scream, try to get us wherever he can to get us hyped up so we can go out there and play every day at our best.
It's been great. He's been able to let the team speak for themselves and the team, figure out what was best for the team and bounce it off the coach. We've been able to have player-led meetings and just be able to kind of lead our team on the own and then get his approval on it has been great, and he's been nothing but the best for our players.
You've been here for a few years with Coach Day, and you're going to move on after this year. What have you appreciated most, I guess, about the way he runs a program and coaches his team?
Just the attention to detail, especially at the quarterback position and on offense. Being able to sit in meetings with him and see what he sees on the defense and being able to understand why he's teaching certain things and why we're doing things a certain way. It's been, super, super, super helpful for me just to be able to learn that and, being able to move on with that.
A leader.
He's been fired up lately, man. Is he always just fired up?
Man, it's always him. It's in his DNA. Just now, on a bigger stage, he can show it. So
it's been a great honor to be, a player for him for the last 5 years. He's been amazing to be around. He's a very smart guy, but more importantly than X's and O's and the things that he can do on the field and the way he can coach on the field, I believe he's a great developer of men, and I think that's so often oversaw. I think there's this idea that football trumps life, football trumps men. Being development of being good men, and that's just not the case to me. I believe that you're a human. I'm a follower of Christ before I'm a football player, and so I think the development of me as a man is equally as important to how much we're developing on the field. And so I think Coach Day does a great job of doing the both of those things, developing us as football players, but also he's big on character development and making sure you're becoming the best version of yourself.
I say he's a leader, a great coach. Keeps everybody in check, motivates us. I'll say everything you want in a head coach.
We've seen this stuff on social media of him giving you guys some fiery speeches here. Is he always like that, or has he turned it up for the playoff?
I would say he's always like that. Usually it doesn't get recorded though, but the last couple of weeks it's been getting recorded. So
I think for him, he's just very personable, and I think he's very much in tune with what the players want, and I think he only said one thing, but I think
you can say plenty of things.
Yeah, I think he just, he's also obviously very intelligent in the way he kind of conducts things. He really cares about his players and cares what's said about our players and cares about how we react to some certain things. So I think it's really important. I think it's last night we were talking to Coach Day. My girlfriend's from Long Island and she's Greek and his wife's Greek, so we were talking about that. It was kind of funny, the connection there. Just being able to connect on a more personal level than just a coach CEO basis kind of thing. So it's cool.
All right, so what did you think? I was struck a little bit, and we talked to even more guys than we were able to show. How just a lot of guys at least said were fiery for Ryan Day, right?
Fiery, passionate, yeah.
And I don't. Before this year, would that have been my guess for how Ohio State players describe Ryan?
I think so. Because we in the media have had that conversation about the the mythical and elusive Georgia Ryan Day, right? And the passion that he was showing on the sideline, and wondering maybe why that doesn't always come out in every single game. I think is because it's hard to be that every week. But no, I think he is, and we've gotten a window into that too with some of the stuff that Ohio State has put out on social media channels, with like its recap videos of games and some scenes from inside the locker room. I think it's clear that Ryan Day, while he may not like speak to us with a ton of passion, clearly coaches with it, and I think runs practice with it and talks to his team in a pretty passionate way that resonates with them. So yeah, I think they probably would have said the same thing a couple of years ago. I just think maybe now, because of the run that Ohio State's on, maybe fans have had a little bit more of a window into that than they normally would.
It's just so interesting. Both these coaches, Dave, certainly farther along the path than Marcus Freeman, but you two guys who have never done it before, like you really are watching them evolve and learn on the job in real time, which is not always the case for coaches at this level. You know, Nick Saban did it at Michigan State. Not that Michigan State's not a great program, but it's not quite this. And then by the time he got to LSU, he had kind of figured it out.
And I think that was some of the hesitancy with both of their promotions, right? It's should Ohio State and Notre Dame be places where coaches do learn on the job? And I think if you think the answer to that is no, it's a pretty well-reasoned response. These are big entities that need to be run by people who can handle a lot. And even Ryan Day in his 6th year around Ohio State, I think, is still very much learning about the job. I know the longer you get in a career, the less patience and grace people have for that sort of thing. But I do think it's a reality of the position. It's definitely true for Marcus Freeman and only his 3rd year. I don't know. It would be interesting to talk to a more seasoned coach, to ask them when they feel like they kind of had it figured out. And also, like, all of that is kind of thrown out of whack too by how much the sport has changed in the 6 years that Ryan Day has been a head coach and the 3 that Marcus Freeman has. So, but I think that in that they have demonstrated a strong suit, which is an adaptability to the changing nature of college football. So they're both at different stages of their coaching journeys, obviously, but I think very much still learning about, the right and wrong ways to do this job.
All right. Last thing we have here of interviews is we ask people about Northern Ball. So this is like, we are the only people on earth who ask these kind of questions of people. And I would say, to me, it's about 75% of the time is sort of like I'm not sure if I really get what they're trying to get at here. And I'll give a little bit of a generic answer. And then 25%, you get a little bit of oh yeah. And when you get those,
I think you're right. And you've had a little more experience with this, I think, than I have, because you were at the Trigger Bowl Media Day, at least when there was a Southern team there. I feel like I've gotten more of the like, yeah, I get it, answers from guys who are actually from the South.
Oh.
And I got one from Jaden Osbury that I think is part of this package we're about to play.
Yeah, I don't think that's wrong. Yeah, because you have to lead the Northern guys a little bit more, because sometimes like, how like the SEC like won all the national championships for 20 years, but like now they can cram it.
Yeah.
And like they're a little reticent sometimes.
Right.
But the Southern guys are like, no, I know how good that ball is, but I came up here for a reason.
Yeah. I really wanted to talk to Quinshon Judkin for this, and I didn't get a chance to. He was just bouncing around, and he was on like the BTN set, but he's from Alabama, and obviously played at Ole Miss. I think has like at times hinted subtly that you're like, oh yeah, this is like different than the SEC. Maybe he's just trying to throw shade at Ole Miss. I'm not sure, but
we're here for
but he's unfortunately not part of this. But I thought Jaden Osbury, who's a Notre Dame linebacker from Baton Rouge, had some pretty good perspective on it.
All right, let's get to it. Asking Ohio State and Notre Dame players about the North rising up.
You're a young man from Wisconsin. We are here at the national title game in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Some consider it the heart of Southern college football.
Yeah.
But yet here's Ohio State, here's Notre Dame, 2 Northern teams playing for the national title. What's that mean to you as a young man who grew up playing football in the North?
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. Some might say it just means more of the North. But I think just being able to, represent, a small town where I come from has been really important. I grew up in an unincorporated community. The closest town to me was 303 people. So, just being able to be out here and play with my brothers and play with the guys around me has been really cool. I know a lot of people at home are supporting me, so I want to put on for them. And just being able to, showcase what God's given me has been really, really cool.
I'll say we played SEC teams. You've seen the scores, so think that narrative needs to die. Yeah.
Isn't the best? You guys just want to have the opportunity to prove this stuff on the field, right? Is that what any player wants?
Yeah, definitely. He's just, like I said, we played two SEC teams. We played 2 of them, and we won both games. And so I don't know where the big bad conference comes from, but they didn't show up when they played us.
It just shows how the dynamics of college football are changing because usually it's at least one SEC team, but now it's you got an independent team and then you got a Big Ten team. So that just shows how college football is changing, in terms of NIL and just the whole landscape of it all. So it's pretty cool to see that though. So
yeah, I was going to ask, I think that's an exciting change.
Yeah, I think it's a good change too because it shows how everybody's on a kind of an even playing field now, and how anybody can make it from any conference. It doesn't matter. So that's really cool to see.
What made you as a kid from Baton Rouge want to kind of branch out and not go to an SEC school, but head north?
Yeah, really just going to Notre Dame in particular on my visits, it just felt different. The vibe I got from the coaches, I got along with the players too when I was getting recruited. And then really just, experience something new, growing as a person, and, being around, new people. So that was something that really stuck out to me.
As a Southern guy myself, I will say it's Southern. A lot of people could say it means more in the South, but at the end of the day, it's football. It means a lot to everybody, and we're a blue blood program. Notre Dame, Ohio State, Michigan, all these teams, USC, all these teams have history. They have value. They put a lot of time and effort into a football program, and you can't say that they're not as talented or not as invested in football as teams in the South. So.
Yeah. Yeah, you got 2 teams from the Midwest area, so it's definitely pretty good, pretty cool. But it's 2 historically amazing programs. Great tradition. Obviously we both had early losses in the season. It's almost like a movie story type thing. Ohio State versus Notre Dame in the national championship. So super excited to be a part of it. It's gonna be a historic game. I can't wait for it.
A certain blue collar element to it. Now, I'm biased because I'm an Ohio kid. Grew up in Columbus, so. And there's a lot of coaches on the staff with those ties. So I think those things, they matter when everything else dies. Like toughness matters when you're tired or when you do have injuries. When hell breaks loose, that's what anchors you. So I think being at all 3 of those schools, I know that's been a part of their tradition. Growing up in the Midwest, you see it from time to time, year in and year out, time and time again. So yeah, I think those things are really important. Hopefully that's part of why we're all around this. The end of the year, we're in this, in this situation.
This is how I always kind of mention it. I'm from Ohio too, so growing up, just talking with coming to Notre Dame, man, and guys get recruited all over the country, and guys from the South, guys from the West. I always say the North, the Midwest football is a hard-nosed football in the trenches, and to see that to 2 blue bloods in the national championship game is always good. And to be from them both being from the North is great. That's the real football. That's the tough, nitty-gritty football, and it's good to see.
I don't half jokingly. I don't think it's a joke, but it could be. I have a lot of family from South Bend. They are not coming to the game, I don't think, because Ashley Durbin, my cousin, is due on the 26th, and per her, she's gonna name him Luke if we win, and Marcus if they win. And
no way.
I'm not joking. I don't think it's a joke either because they're like psychos about Notre Dame.
That's a lot of pressure on your shoulders, man. This kid's got to be named Luke.
I know, 100%. It's crazy, but it's funny. It's funny.
You're gonna tell the team this in the locker room?
I told a couple of them, but I don't know if it's true or not. But I wouldn't be surprised if it is because they're legitimately crazy. They have the season tickets. They've had them for a long, long time. And they live 2 or 3 miles from the stadium.
All right, another storyline, another layer to this game, man.
I'm sure Ashley will see this.
That's breaking news of the baby name battle.
I think he's told it to other people, Luke Montgomery, the Ohio State offensive lineman from Findlay, Ohio. But man, that's crazy. That's because I don't Marcus Freeman doesn't know. He doesn't know that he's playing for the birth name of a child.
Yeah,
but it's all that cousin's psyching Luke out. I know what she's doing.
That's gonna be like in People Magazine. Right?
Yeah.
That's a perfect People Magazine national championship game story. And then they'll have a photo shoot with the baby, with little Luke or little Marcus.
I just hope when whoever mentions it on ESPN's broadcast, please credit Kings of the North.
Yeah, as told exclusively
Yeah.
to KOTN. All right. Last break. When we come back, we want to talk about special teams a little bit. Sunday's going to be our big game breakdown, where we're going to do what we always do, but we don't always talk about special teams on that. So we're going to do a little special teams here. We'll do that next on Kings of the North. Back on Kings of the North. Subscribe, like, tell a friend. Thanks for being part of it. We're doing a special show Saturday. We're going to have a show Sunday, big game breakdown, where Bill and I will make our picks. I don't have my pick locked in yet. Do you?
No, I've been asked by several people. Spencer Holbrook, covers Ohio State for Letterman Row, has asked me at every bowl trip, where are your and Doug's picks? We get them in too late. That's the thing. Like national writers are putting out their national championship picks 10 seconds after Ohio State Texas ended. I need time. I need to watch some tape. I need to talk to some people. So I have not made up my mind yet.
I think our picks are better then.
I would assume so. I don't know. I haven't tracked it.
Listen, I'm not trying to. There was one round where I was like 2 points off on one game, 3 points off on another game. Like when we dig in,
we do dig in. Yeah,
we don't. Honestly, it's not for content. Like we don't do our picks.
No, we just do our picks
we do it for what we really think after we study.
Yeah, but as also as part of our previews, which I think a lot of previews you get on podcasts can be a little bit superficial, and we try to dive in a little more.
No, and what we want to do, like we're a Math and Vibe show,
mm-hmm.
and everything. It's like we look up stuff, we analyze stuff, we watch old games,
mm-hmm.
but then we also I hate making a pick until you get to be around everybody for a last time.
For sure.
And I'm not saying that that's the end all be all of great analysis. Like, oh, let me tell you, media day vibes. It's not nothing.
I think there's something to be gleaned. Like, boy, this team seems tight. Boy, this seems like maybe this is a little too big for them. Not to say that I picked up on any of that today, because I actually don't think I did. But that's what I'm waiting for. Or at least I would like that piece of information before I make a pick. Right?
I think it's an important piece of information, and I agree. I don't know that in this game anything that I learned or felt today is going to affect my pick, but at times in the past it has. Definitely other games I've been at.
Yeah, it has for sure in the past. Yeah.
Okay. So one of the other things is special teams. So Notre Dame has really, and maybe I'm just enamored with it because the one Notre Dame game I was at this regular season was the Virginia game where they ran this 61-yard touchdown fake punt where they brought Jordan Faison in motion and really hit Virginia with it. And then it got called back because the officials thought they lined up in a way that you weren't allowed to line up. And Marcus Freeman was like, no, we looked at the rules for this.
Mm-hmm.
We think we're right about this. So it wasn't like they did exactly what they wanted to do. And then there was a difference of opinion of whether it was allowed or not. But it was quite creative and quite effective.
And the first of two times that happened this year where people were uncertain if the thing that Notre Dame did was actually within the rules.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Which is sometimes that means it's because you're smartly pushing the envelope.
Yes.
Like Mike Vrabel has done that in the NFL, smartly pushing the envelope. Dan Lanning did it this year, smartly pushing the envelope and causing a rule change.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I feel like that's Jim Harbaugh pushed a bunch. Like the NCAA was like, that's illegal, that's illegal, that's illegal because of what he was doing to try to give his team an advantage. And it's like sometimes people get mad about that, but if it's not against the rules, I'm sorry that I found a mistake in your book and took advantage of it.
Yeah. Or even if you're not going to get penalized for it, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like, even if it is against the rules.
Yeah. So Marty Biaggi is the special teams coordinator for Notre Dame. So they've had that. They had a kick return for a touchdown against Georgia, which was like enormous.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've been talking about this. Mitch Jeter makes that field goal at the end of the Penn State game after maybe not having a great year but part of it was he got healthy, right?
Yeah, he was injured in the season. I think he made like 1 or 2 field goals in like a 7-game stretch or something like that. But he was injured, and now he's healthy, and he's the kicker that they thought they were getting when they got him from South Carolina. Is that where they got him from?
Okay.
Yeah.
So we talked about some special team stuff. This is the special teams coordinator for the Fighting Irish.
How many different wrinkles and potential trick plays do you have in your special teams handbook for the variety of situations you might come into?
You know, I kind of get asked that question a lot. I'd say more than anything, we're always just trying to be situational masters, and it's you know, not to be cliche, but there's so many different variations of things that can evolve in a football game, especially in the kicking game or on special teams plays. So you're trying to, you know, do 2 things. One, make sure you're prepared for all the things that could happen to you, but then also, you know, be ready for when there's an opportunity we need to maximize. So I don't know that there's a set number as much as just if there's something that we feel like we can execute, being ready.
Do you get an idea during film study, getting ready for an opponent, of where, like, hey, we think we might be able to do something here, and then it's just a matter of you and Marcus deciding on game day if you get the look you need?
Yeah, you know, some of it is actually done in the off season, where we're looking at you know, some things for particular opponents, some we feel like we can carry for multiple games. But then, you know, presenting the game plan with Coach Freeman, we get together on Mondays, and you know, we talk through what we think whatever we think could help us give us a chance to win that game. And so then we'll start to factor in, okay, here's what we need to do. And then it just comes down to if we're repping it and liking it, then, you know, there's a chance we'll call it. We don't ever want to be greedy, and we're realistic. We know, you know, with all these plays, there's good things that can happen. There's also, you know, negatives that can happen. And so, of course, we always want the positive result, but we also understand we want to be as prepared as possible to try and eliminate, you know, the negative opportunity.
The kick return against Georgia obviously is a game-changing play. Is that it blocked it up exactly as you guys practiced it? Is it a great individual effort? Was there something there that you thought going into that game, maybe we got a shot here, or what was the key to that?
Yeah, I would say it was a combination of all 3 of those things, in all honesty. But our guys really knew the game plan. At halftime, we had said we felt like we were going to get an opportunity at some point to have an explosive return. We even reiterated the exact things that we were trying to make sure we targeted at halftime, of who we wanted to make sure we had to eliminate. Okay. You know, we had 2 backups that come in for that play, just even due to Bo Collins had hydration, and so we had a couple other guys come in. Leo Scheidler had come in for Bo Collins. Kevin Bauman had come in for Cooper Flanagan, who had been injured. So that was what was so special about that play, is at halftime, once again reiterating that at any point you might only get 1 play in the game, but we got to maximize it. And for those guys, that was the 1 play they played in the game, and they maximized it. Leo had an unbelievable block to the field of sealing up, you know, one of their really good coverage players. And so then, of course, that's why you want Jaden Harrison back there, a guy with athletic ability, because normally on a kick return or punt return, you want some, you know, you're going to have to make somebody miss, and that's what he did.
And then what can you do? What do you try to do as a special teams coach when you have a kicker ready to try to kick a game-winning field goal? Is that kind of let that guy do his thing, or how can you advise him?
We do. So a lot of that, it's a lot of golfing type techniques physically. When we're talking technique, mentally, we really try and create the picture of being a closing pitcher, a Mariano Rivera. So we let them do their element. We have a process that we don't change. And that's the biggest thing for us is I want Mitch to be in a routine, but not just Mitch, the snapper and the holder, you know, often get overlooked. So we don't stray away and try and do different things. Once they know their routine, whether it's the first extra point, a game-winning field goal, their routine is the same once it's an alert of a 3rd down or an alert of a field goal opportunity.
You know how many 50-yard field goals Ohio State and Notre Dame have kicked this year?
Have kicked?
Have made?
Zero.
Yeah. Mitch Jeter from Notre Dame is 0 for 1, and Jaden Fielding from Ohio State is 0 for 1. So if you're looking for a bomb to end it, maybe not, right?
I don't think Ohio State's going to line up for a 50-yard field goal in this particular building.
Oh, is there history there?
Yeah,
there's a history there. Mitch Jeter, 13 of 20 on field goals this year, 2 of 3 in the 20s, 1 of 3 in the 30s, 10 of 13 in the 40s, 0 of 1. 50 plus, Jaden Fielding, Ohio State, 2 of 2 in the 20s, 3 of 5 in the 30s, 6 of 7 in the 40s, 0 of 1, 50 plus. He's 11 of 15. Edge either way. And again, noting that injured Jeter was part of the equation, and now he's healthy.
I don't know if there's like for other kicker. I don't know if there's much of an edge. Maybe Jeter's got more of a pedigree and a track record. It was, I think, for Jaden Fielding to get a couple under his belt against Oregon in the Rose Bowl. Not the most high leverage of kicks, but they were pretty far kicks. He's actually been, you just laid out the stats, he's been better like between the 40 yards than he has been on some of the shorter stuff. I maybe a slight lean the Jeter, but maybe a wash overall.
One of the bets that I made with T. Shoe on the Friday show is that I thought there would be, it was like plus 245 or whatever, a defensive or special team score in this game. And I outlined like all the different things that it could be. I mean, we saw the Notre Dame kick return against Georgia that was like not quite the nail in the coffin, but it was at least like the wiffle ball bat to the nuts. What am I doing? We've been here too long.
Yeah.
The show is too long.
Yeah. We all know what you mean.
Yeah. So like it was that, and we saw, we were talking a lot this season about like Ryan Day looking for the edges. One of the margins, like finding things, and one of the things they did is put 2 of their most skilled players back as return guys, Trevion Henderson on kicks and Caleb Downs on punts. And then Caleb Downs this year returned a punt for a touchdown. That was the first time in a decade that Ohio State had done that. Any edges there in the return game?
Probably Notre Dame maybe. So we're still Ohio State hasn't returned a kickoff for a touchdown since 2010. Right, so we're still looking at that, but Caleb Downs did at least end a punt return drought. I think it is more what's the right word? Like more of a factor in Notre Dame's games than it tends to be in Ohio State's games. And Ohio State has put a lot of more emphasis on it this year, but they don't have a full-time special teams coordinator anymore. It's more of a by committee approach, and Notre Dame does it a little differently, it seems, and a little more creatively at times. I think Ohio State, and I completely understand that most of the time is still in that mode of like, let's just catch the ball and get our offense on the field. Where Notre Dame, I think, especially in a game like this, will be looking to spark something on special teams. It tends to do that in its biggest games.
And then we've seen, again, that Virginia thing a couple other times. Notre Dame tried to dial it up. Again, referencing what Bill previously is that Ohio State played Georgia in this building in a semifinal 2 years ago. They missed a field goal at the end of that game, but they also were ready to try a fake
punt.
A fake punt, and Kirby Smart sniffed it out and called timeout.
Yep.
So that was one of those moments where it's like, I think when it comes to that kind of thing, Kirby Smart's pretty good at this, and I think it's a thing of like having your head coach so connected to special teams, which can be really valuable. I think Ryan Day is more like that today than he was 2 years ago, especially if you're not going to have, and he's talked about that, if you're not going to have a special teams coordinator. They dismissed the guy last year and then did not fill that spot. And Ryan Day said, I'm going to be more involved. I like that. I like a special teams coordinator who's good, but I also like if it's by committee. Like Urban Meyer was the special teams coach in a lot of ways for Ohio State. Ryan Day's embraced that. But the point of that is, 2 years ago in a gigantic game, Ryan Day was ready to like call a fake. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, so
I think
who would you be on alert for maybe trying something here?
I'm more on alert for Notre Dame because they've done it more this year. But I think Ohio State could have something. Oh, and you can't really conjure a kick return for a touchdown, right? You can put a dynamic guy back there and hope your block's set up the right way, but like you are a little constrained on what actually you can make happen in those situations. When Ohio State has tried to make something happen on special teams under Ryan Day, it's most often been like punt blocks. They've been fairly creative. Lathan Ransom, Ohio State safety, is quite good at that. He's blocked a couple in his career. I could see Ohio State drawing something up where they try to come after a punt maybe and try to spark something that way. Whereas I think perhaps Notre Dame might be more apt to maybe try a fake punt or a fake field goal or do something like it did against Georgia where it ran special teams on the field and then ran them all off the field and got Georgia out of sorts there.
Okay. All right. That's our Saturday show. Sunday, big game breakdown, picks. Monday, final preview. Maybe have some visitors come on and make their picks for the game, share their analysis of it. Monday night, post-game show, live from Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And an attempt Monday evening to maybe see some folks, see the audience before the game. If we can meet up somewhere, we will try to have more information for you about that on Sunday or Monday shows. But the other thing I would tell you is subscribe to our Twitter feed, KOTNCFB, and we'll try to post any information there. So,
yeah, there's like an area, like it seems like by the Hall of Fame, by the the World of Coca-Cola area. There's a lot of stuff for fans to do around there. So that's probably a hot spot running into some folks.
Do you guys wear Coke shirts in your generation, or was that not
like a Coca-Cola script? No,
like
not really.
That was like a big thing for a while. It was like a polo shirt with like a Coca-Cola, like a white band across it that said Coca-Cola, and you get it like in different colors. Because like, why wouldn't you promote a sugary drink on your everyday attire? I don't. It's just what we did in the 80s. It's like, hey man, what's the height of fashion? Coke shirt,
branded soda T-shirts.
Yeah. All right. Thanks to our producer Mike Yurstowski, who is on site with us and like figuring out stuff on the fly and making it happen. So we appreciate being able to get some of those interviews to you guys. Thanks as always to you for being part of it. Otherwise, we're just a bunch of yahoos yelling into a microphone for no reason. If we saw you out there at Media Day, if we see you out here in Atlanta, please say hello. It's nice to meet the folks that make this show possible. And tell a friend, subscribe, get notifications, whatever, so you can continue to be part of this northern community. For now, he's Bill Landis. I'm Doug Lesmerises, and that was Kings of the North.